Examine my eyes,
Sheila said to me as she rested her hands on my shoulders. Her touch caused my heart to start sprinting, and I looked into her cat-like orbs. For a moment, I felt as if I was swimming in a sea of gold, but then she winked at me, twice, with her right eye.
Wink, as I did.
She instructed. I blinked my eyes, but then I realized I needed to just wink the one. I chose the right, same as her. A burst of text appeared in my field of vision. "Oh, shit! What is this?" I gasped. My already improved eyes allowed me to see better than I had back at home, even with my glasses on. Now, they bestowed a new gift. A kind of dashboard appeared in front of me like a heads-up display in a fighter plane. I reached out awkwardly, like a blind man at the strip club. I knew the image was in my eye, but it shimmered when I moved my hand just so. I couldn't help but giggle at how awesome it was.
That is correct, Victor. You can move within the IQ display by using gestures. In time, you'll be able to control it with slight adjustments of the eye itself.
Sheila said while stepping out of my way. "Come again? IQ?" I said while still flopping my hand around. I had to watch carefully so I didn't accidentally grope her as I grabbed at the shimmering letters.
Is that not what you see at the top?
Sheila asked. Well, sure enough, in the top right corner were the words IQ, written in fancy script, like it was a software company logo or something. My name was also on the very top line.
Touch your name, and it calls up some computer jarble.
Galmine added helpfully. I mimicked touching my name on the screen with an air tap of my index finger. It was kind of like using my tablet back home, but it still felt silly tapping blank air. Sure enough, the screen blinked and a new array of jarble appeared next to a picture of me, standing with a dumb look on my face. I didn't recognize the background, but I was wearing my uniform and Aussie hat, so I figured it was very recent. A few rows of data reported all sorts of things I already knew. Eye color, height, and weight, although I thought it was reporting a bit high on that one. Lots of stuff similar to a driver's license, but also my home planet, along with some strange long rows of numbers. At the bottom section were stats, like in a video game. Strength, 3, stamina, 2, movement, 3, special skill, Tame, level 2. Is that what they wanted from me? It says strength 3, stamina 2, and movement 3. My special skill is called Tame level 2? Does it mean anything to you? Trell laughed uproariously.
Tame! You can say that again! I told you men are helpless. I think Tame sounds like a wonderful skill.
Galmine purred. Trell didn't miss a beat, but spoke with noticeably less hostility.
Well, come on. If he had said Starship Builder, it might have blown my skirt up. Neither of you can seriously think Tame is going to do anything for us.
What are your special skills? I said, as politely as possible, to redirect Trell from insulting me. I feared they were going to throw epic abilities in my face and make mine look ridiculous by comparison. I was kind of facing Galmine, so she spoke first.
Mine says, grow. And I guess that's because my people are very adept at growing plants. In my world, we have far less sun than here.
Galmine pointed outside of the cave and then brushed her silver hair back with the same finger.
It is also much cooler. We live off vegetables and grains. My IQ says I am level 1. My strength, stamina, and movement all say 1. But I don't really know what that means. It means you are too nice.
Trell replied with a sigh.
What do you mean?
Galmine asked Trell, and the gray-skinned woman smiled sweetly at the Spider-Woman.
I like being nice to people. You are all my friends. I wish I were home, of course, but I am happy to be in your company. Never mind.
Trell grumbled, and it seemed to me that the haughty woman couldn't bring herself to be mean to Galmine. What about you? I asked Sheila.
It says critical strike. I grew up training with weapons, so I suppose that is what they mean. I'm also level 1.
They? I asked.
Idiots. The beings that took us from our home, tore our eyes out, put new ones in, and dumped us here to get eaten by giant lizards?
Trell spat the words and crossed her arms over her chest. Yeah. Sorry for kind of a stupid question, I said, and I forced myself to smile at the dark-haired woman. Her long, thin fingers were more spider than human, and I wondered absently how she touched people without hurting them. And what are your stats, if you don't mind? I asked the feline warrior woman.
My strength and movement are both 8, but my stamina is only rated at full.
She replied. Wow, that's amazing. I whistled with awe. Sheila was much stronger than me.
Huh!
Trell snorted, and then she cleared her throat and pointed a long finger at me.
You aren't even polite enough to inquire what my IQ reads. You should have asked me first, since I'm the most important one here.
Trell looked like she rolled her eyes at me as she spoke, but it was hard to tell because they were all black. What is your special skill? I asked, while being excessively courteous. Trell was quickly approaching the point where her beauty wasn't enough to justify her attitude, but I still didn't want to piss her off.
Structure building,
she said, without further explanation. I could tell she was waiting for me to say something. She smirked, and I saw her vampire fangs again. What does that do? I finally asked. She threw up her human-looking arms.
How should I know? Do you think I want to build something? Ugh, peasant work.
Trell's pretty nose scrunched up with disgust. And, what are your stats? I asked, really trying hard to be nice.
My strength is higher than yours, male. That's all you need to know. Hm.
She huffed.
If you were on my planet, I'd put you at the back of my 10,000 deep suitor line. I'm almost tired of hearing my own voice repeated, but you are going to be useless to us. That remains to be seen.
Sheila replied to Trell with more patience than I thought possible.
Whoever brought us here and did this to us is very powerful. They must have had a purpose for bringing him here as well. Yeah, so he can drain away our food and water.
Trell sniped back under her breath. I can carry my own weight, I countered. I couldn't believe that I was weaker than Trell, but her spider legs and claw hands did look deadly. Strangely, I was also a little deflated at getting tossed to the back of her suitor line. It was like high school all over again, with the prettiest girls not giving me the time of day.
We appreciate your help, no matter what skill you have,
Sheila said with a nod, and I saw Galmine smile at me pleasantly. Just tell me what you need me to do, and I'll do it, I said with more confidence. Maybe Trell didn't like me, but Sheila and Galmine obviously did, and I'd work to protect them. If angry birds are coming to roost in your cave, let's figure out how to stop them. With 4 of us, I'm sure we can think of something.
As I predicted, the male is only as good as the women who command him.
Trell walked around on her human-looking legs to the other side of Sheila. Her spider legs were now folded up on her back again, so they resumed looking like bulky wings. It made her no less scary, because I knew they could come right back down. No, I said. It's not like you command me. I'm willing to help. If we all work together, we can
I do not do common labor or planning.
Trell snapped.
Haven't you been listening?
Galmine moved to be close to me.
Don't worry, Victor. Everyone has their place. I am not very strong, nor do I move fast, but I will help where I can. If we find a spot for a garden, I can grow some vegetables for us to eat. Can you grow meat?
Trell huffed. Galmine was steadfast.
I'll do what I can for you until then. I'm glad you came to us, Tamer.
She stepped closer and surprised me with a quick hug. Her body was surprisingly warm, and during those tantalizing seconds we were joined, I wondered if the gray rock on her skin counted as clothes, or if she was actually hugging me while she was naked.
We have a few hours of sunlight left and much to do, but I will show you around,
Sheila said. She directed me to follow her through the large cave opening, but the task became shamelessly sexual when I watched her firm ass sway in her torn bikini bottoms. Her long blonde mane swished across her butt hypnotically while she walked, and I almost tripped over a rock when I was watching her, instead of where I was stepping. A dozen wooden spears were leaning against the wall right at the exit. Their tips were burnt for strength, and I saw one of them was covered with blood. I figured it was the one she'd used to kill the giant crocodile that had almost eaten me for breakfast. "What's that for?" I said while pointing to a clay pot just off to the side of the mouth of the cave.
Do you not relieve yourself?
She deadpanned. "Oh," I said, realizing the whole world was now my toilet. All the time." I laughed to cover the dumb question, then I followed her out the door. I rubbed my face with my free hand as we emerged into the daylight. Every moment of my life was now a surprise, but I was greeted by a huge shock in the landscape. Instead of the wet, sticky tangle of ferns, vines, and strange, sinuous trees from yesterday and this morning, we were now in a forest of huge conifers that seemed more like the sequoia redwoods than a Jurassic jungle. There were relatively few of the true giant trees, and they grew with 40 or 50 yards of space between each other for as far as I could see into the grove. Ferns and other small plants hugged against the trunks, and clumps of smaller evergreens dotted the forest as well. There were also flat, open areas of fallen pine needles between each of the ancient redwoods. "How far away was the place where you rescued me?" I asked as we walked down the narrow pathway leading from cave to the bottom, some 25 feet below us.
About a mile and a half.
Sheila responded. "How is that possible?" I wondered. "Where are the vines and stuff? It's like we're on a different planet and we didn't go very far."
I do not try to understand the technology controlling this world. I have walked the coast for many days and have seen several different lands. On my world, we have vast swamps, grasslands, and forests seemingly without end. Here, everything is jumbled as if the builders want to confuse us.
She paused for a moment to choose her words carefully.
I stayed here because it reminds me of home.
I wanted to ask her about her world, but something she said was more pressing. "How do you know what mile means?" I asked. "Do your people use the same unit of measurement?"
Yes?
Sheila said as she shook her head.
You misunderstand. Our abductors have made it so we speak the same language and use the same measurements. It sounds as if you are speaking my language. We believe they have done this so we can survive in the world they built.
"You think all this was built?" I asked as I thought through her words.
I do not know. It matters not. Come.
She walked me to the bottom of the ramp in front of the cave, and then we turned around to look back along the route we came. I could barely see the cave mouth back up the steep hillside.
I spend all day hunting or berry picking. Trell won't leave the cave to do the work, and Galmine moves too slow to escape any of the creatures that are on this planet. You cannot really see the cave from the position down here, but I worry about dinosaurs getting in. A second warrior with a spear will make things safer.
We stood facing each other as the sunlight beamed from the pine boughs high above. "Yeah, it seems as if you've been supporting them," I said.
I do what I can. Having someone who will cooperate will help us all.
Sheila answered, and her yellow eyes seemed to focus on my badge. "I'm happy to help. You did save my life." I smiled at her, and I lost a bit of my breath when she returned my smile. She was like the sun to Trell's darkness.
I have been here much longer than the other two. Trail is convinced help is coming. I think Galmine believes that too.
"But not you?" I asked as I stared into her beautiful golden eyes.
Rescue might come, or it might not. I do not want to bet my life on uncontrollable actions of others. I predict that those birds will return to the cave and force us to fight. They might not, but if they do, we will not be able to survive against them the way we are now.
She shrugged, and the movement did all sorts of amazing things to her chest area. Oh, it's too bad that the guys I first met are dead. They could have helped defend us against these birds.
It does not matter,
She said.
They are dead. Wasting energy thinking about what could have been will only hamper our ability to survive. I know Trell will not agree, but you showed up at the perfect time.
Yeah, she doesn't like me for some reason. But I appreciate your words, I replied with a smile.
We are all scared, Victor. This world is cruel and unforgiving. I do not know what happened to Trell before I found her, but the constant threat of death affects us all. Do not let her words bother you.
Sheila's voice was intoxicating. I had a million questions about her home world, her travels on this one, and how she came to be with the other two women. But I had her alone, and there was one burning question I needed to ask. Why do you sound like you're speaking Australian? It's, distracting as hell. I was tempted to tell her how sexy she was when she spoke it, but it didn't seem appropriate.
This is my natural way of speaking. I'm surprised that you interpret it as an accent from your world. But as I said, our captors did something to our minds to let us understand everyone's different languages.
Okay, so I began, but motion caught my eye near one of the large trees 50 yards away at the edge of the clearing. I watched for a few moments before I was certain what it was. I'll be damned. It followed me. I laughed a bit at the thought and guided Sheila's beautiful eyes to the object of my mirth. The little blue roadrunner dinosaur was hopping around, pecking at the ground. It would look up, move a little closer to me, then peck at the ground again and pull up some big bug and swallow it whole.
I saw that beast around you before,
Sheila said with a touch of amazement. Yeah, I tried to get rid of it, but it doesn't get the hint. Maybe I should keep it for a pet. I laughed at the thought of having a roadrunner for a pet back home. It would look hilarious on a leash at the dog park.
Can you call it to you?
She asked. Seriously? She nodded and then looked to the small bird. Okay, I'll give it a try. I took a few steps in the direction of the dino bird and hesitated. If I was back home, I'd try to snare it and bring it out of the wild, but this was all different. The aliens who built this place, if I believed Sheila's theory, must have had a reason for wanting this bird to follow me. Damned if I could think what it was. On a whim, I blinked to turn on the IQ and pointed my hand at the bird inside the overlay of the user interface. Tell me what that is? I said, half-heartedly. I was so surprised at the response I blinked the thing off. Holy fuck, it worked, I said.
What are you doing, Victor?
Sheila called from over my shoulder. I held up my free hand with my index finger pointing up, hoping she understood the please wait gesture. I blinked the IQ back on and looked at the screen. It showed an outline around the dinosaur and displayed its name. Identification, dinosaur, Gynphingopteryx elegans, male. This is awesome. Hey! That dinosaur is called Gynphingopter... this name sucks. I'll call him Jinx for short. I'd encountered long names in biology and animal sciences, but seeing them and saying them were light years of difference. Here, Jinx. Come. I crouched down with glee, still with the IQ system displaying in my field of vision. At first, the little animal didn't do anything, and I imagined Sheila's disappointment behind me. Then, the bird sort of hopped a few times in my direction, and I thought I had it for sure, but then it got back to pecking at the ground. I called it for several minutes, but finally had to admit that wasn't going to work. I flicked off the IQ and turned to Sheila. I expected an insult like Trell would deliver, but the warrior catwoman smiled brightly instead.
I do think it likes you,
she said.
You'll come closer next time.
Yeah, I guess, I replied as I looked at the little blue dino again. It had already hopped away, and I suspected that Sheila was just being nice when she told me he would come closer next time.
See? He can't even tame a puny beast, useless male.
Trell shouted from behind some bushes up by the cave entrance. She laughed and then disappeared back through the opening.
Trail is harmless.
Sheila said as she stepped near me and motioned to the cave.
And that is the challenge we have.
Her problem was not complicated. Trell wasn't going to help, and Galmine couldn't survive out and about in a world full of bloodthirsty predators. Sheila rescued me, believing I was going to be extra hands needed to fight for survival. The dinosaurs that took out Heracula and Kelg sent a shiver down my leg, but sexy girls in distress were more than making up for the terrifying experience. Maybe I'd stumbled on why the aliens chose me. I really liked animals and beautiful women. Our eyes met once more, and her feline orbs pulled at me as surely as if she was reaching into my brain. We stared at each other for a few moments, and then she tilted her head and looked up and behind me. When I didn't immediately turn to follow her lead, she looked at me again and repeated the act. I finally got the hint and turned to face what Sheila was looking at. A pterodactyl-type dinosaur swooped through the pine boughs and landed near the top of a medium-sized tree in the grove of redwoods. The branch sagged under the weight as the dino bird folded its wings next to its body about 75 feet over our heads. The beast was much scarier than the drawings or models I had seen. The size reminded me a lot of the California condor, only a little bigger. The wings of the creature were each longer than I was tall. The dinosaur had hooked claws on the end of the top joint, and its long maw was pointed and very sharp. Its skin was gray with brown undertones, and it blended almost perfectly with the tree branches where it perched. I felt movement by my foot and looked down to see Jinx standing behind my boot. The little guy was looking up at the pterodactyl while he trembled. "You said the bad birds were orange, right? Does this thing want in too?" I asked Sheila as I turned up again.
I am not surprised something else wants the cave. It is a good location for mating and laying eggs.
Sheila was correct. We were standing out in the open below him, but the pterodactyl didn't seem curious about us. Instead, the winged dinosaur was staring intently at the women's cave. But now it was my fucking cave, too. "I'll help you defend your home," I said as I turned to Sheila. "I'm thinking you're right. We are going to have to fight birds sooner or later."
It will be hard work, Victor.
The woman's full lips turned into a small, hope-filled smile that made my heart dance in my chest. "No worries. You saved me, so I owe you. But I also want to live, and I want to protect your friends in the cave. Even Trell."
Thank you.
She said as we shared a quick smile.
Evening is fast approaching. Let's get back inside and tell them about this new flying dinosaur. We have much to do to make things safer for us all.
"I'm looking forward to it," I said, and then I followed the beautiful woman up the narrow path to where her friends waited for us.